Hey guys, my name is Bob and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, I make videos on how to make money the real way, and once you make some money, what to do with it and how to invest it. And today I'd like to speak about how to turn $100 a week into a supercar and a villa. And that might seem super crazy, mind-blowing, but it's actually not that difficult. Now, if we think about this, the first thing that we have to do is to make that $100 a week. Now, I recently published a video, which I'll link over here, how to make $100, but actually more dollars a day, the real way, without selling your soul, without selling all the stuff in your house, how to do that in a sustainable way. So if you haven't checked it out, make sure to check that prior to looking at the rest of this video. Now, once we make $100 a day, or actually a week, because we needed $100 per week to invest, the question is, how can we turn that into an amount, so $1 million or more, to get that supercar and to get that villa? And in order to do that, we have to understand certain things. First, we have to understand is how to invest money, how return on investment works, and what compounding is. So in this first example, we will be investing $1,000. We will be getting an 8% return on investment every year, and we'll keep it here for 30 years. However, we will not be reinvesting our return on investment. So after 30 years, we have $2,400 in interest, plus our initial $1,000 is a grand total of $3,400. And now let's look at compounding. So we will be reinvesting our return on investment. Again, start with $1,000, get an 8% return on investment, and we keep it there for 30 years. And this time, just by reinvesting our return on investment, we will get a $10,935.73 as a grand total. So as you can see, the difference between compounding or not reinvesting your return is huge. Now, another thing is also super important. If we put $100 a week aside and we get this 8% return on investment, and don't worry, I'll get into how to get 8% return on investment in a minute. Let's look at the difference for keeping it for 30 years and for 40 years. So after 30 years, your $100 a week will have turned into over $600,000. But after 40 years, it is over $1.4 million. So those last 10 years really make a world of difference. So the last thing that we want is that we need this money after 1, 2, 10, 15 years. We need it to stay there. Now, how can you ensure this? Well, that's basically by creating a little war fund, how I'd like to call it. You need to have 6 months worth of savings so you can, whenever something goes wrong, whenever a crisis like we had this year happens, you don't have to withdraw your investments because you need the money. You have this little backup, what you can use for a rainy day. Super, super important. Now, the real question is, how do you turn this $100 a week into this supercar and a villa? Well, that is by tracking something like the S&P 500. And we can do this by using index funds. Now, if you look at the graph here, you see that over the past 100 years, the S&P 500 grew an average of 10% a year. Now, I'm speaking about 8% the whole time and 10%. Why is that? And the reason is inflation. A $1 100 years ago could buy you a whole lot more, could probably buy you the supercar and the villa. But now, of course, $1 will not really get you anything serious. So we need to adjust for inflation, which is about 2% a year on average. Right now it's a bit lower. So I changed the 10% into 8%, so it's more realistic. So we've now seen that putting $100 a week aside for 40 years will compound into 1.4 million, which is really, it is enough to buy yourself a super nice supercar and a villa. Now, there's two more things which are super important here, and one is cost. If you have a broker which charges you maybe $5 or $10 every time you invest at $100, or if they charge maybe 1% of your total funds every year, then especially with all this compounding, the 1.4 million will turn into so much less. So it's really important to find yourself a broker which actually has very little to no cost. So do some research, find the best broker out there, which is cheap, and just start putting in this money every single week. If you're a bit older, maybe you're more around my age, you don't have 40 years to wait before you want to retire, hopefully by then you have a bit more money to spend. So turn 100 into 200, or start with, maybe 10, 20, 50K down payment just to start off with, and then, the math will still work out in the end. So there's always ways around this. The other thing that is important is tax. We don't want to do this for 40 years and then we have this 1.4 million and the IRS comes and say, great, pay us 500K tax returns. Now, if you're from a country like the United States, there's something called Roth IRA. And what that means is it's a little thing you can use for your retirement. If you pay the $100 every single week after you pay tax over this money, you don't have to pay tax once you get the full amount out. There's a few rules, so you have to wait till you're actually retired, but that way it's tax-free. The $100 a week will actually turn into 1.4 million. And lastly, before we stop, of course, nothing goes up in a straight line. Let's have another look at the graph. You see sometimes there's little dips. So obviously, if you're gonna sell, don't do it during a big crisis where we drop 30% like we did this year. Wait for another half year for it to recover and then sell. That is, of course, very, very important. So this is the way, if you start right now with just $100 a week, and again, if you watch my previous video, it isn't that hard to make that money, then you will really set yourself up long-term to be able to have a beautiful, pension, buy the supercar, buy this villa by the time you turn 60, 70, and really, really enjoy your life that way. And it's really not that difficult. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was of value. If you watched all the way here, you might as well subscribe. If you haven't subscribed yet, leave a like. It really helps out the channel, helps me reach more people and hopefully help them as well. And I will see you in the next video.